Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following me as I explore the wide world of pens, inks, and a few other things. So this is a package I received today from FedEx, a really upscale way of shipping. And this is delivered from Birmingham Pen Company. So we're going to take a look at this. I got a nice email from Nick when it was delivered, so that's always good. So we're going to see how well it's packaged and explore what's inside. So inside the envelope was this box, and inside the box we're going to look at what I got. It's good to have a trusty knife to open up this well-wrapped box. I did a review on this knife, so those that are interested, I'll put a link in the video description to my review of this knife. And as my lights come into play, so one of the things that's always nice about Birmingham Pen Company, you should get a nice note. You get some nice little accessories, and they are an extremely grateful firm to do business with. It's a family-owned firm. A postcard. How nice. I love the logo. So we have here the invoice, the packing slip, and a thank you note from Nick, which again is always nice to get. Nice recyclable packaging. A new style paper clip. A little bit different than the one that they've had before. And we have in here 4 bottles of ink, and they're very nicely wrapped, again in recyclable packing materials. They all come in a nice little cardboard box container. So let's open them up, look at them. We're going to sample them, do some ink tests, and see if there's any inks here that you might like. So here's the list of the inks. Well, I'll show you how they looked on the website. And this is a blank piece of paper, but it's 68 GSM Tomoe River paper to be used for testing pens and inks. Again, nice little gifts included with my order. So here are the 4 inks that I got. And primarily I have these inks because I was looking for reviews on the TWSBI Draco. So I saw a new reviewer that I hadn't seen before, Talks from the Heart, watched the video and was blown away by the sheen from the ink. I wasn't quite certain what it was, so I asked her. So here's the dialogue that we had in the comments. And yes, I made a purchase based on watching a video on YouTube. So I know many of you viewers have told me you've bought a lot of pens and stuff based on my videos, so I have to say that I'm doing the same thing that you do. So these bottles are just great. They're just simplistic design, nice wide open necks, so you can stick a type of pen in it. Tesla coil, I got a smaller one. I mean, Birmingham Pens has a $40 minimum order to avoid shipping charges, so obviously I needed to get over $40, and this was the one that took me over $40. Probably I would have gotten a big bottle of this one now that I've seen how it writes, and you will see that shortly too. So I'm preparing to create what I need for the ink review. I have my coloring card here, fresh bottle of ink out of this nice box. I have my glass nib pen. my spatula for the ink blotch, and my Q-tip for the ink swab. So we're going to take you through that, and then we'll also take a look at a chromatography, and that should be everything I'm going to be doing. So I always shake up a bottle of ink, and these bottles have always worked very well. You have a nice inside liner there. My first impression as I look at the ink in the cap is, wow. Very intense, very dark blue. Dip in the glass nib a couple times, let it come off. And then we write the name of the ink. I do a cross hatch up here that I don't do anything with. I do a cross hatch here that I smear. I just think it shows off the variation of the ink. I do some ink patches. Very intense color. And then I take a Q-tip, dip it into the ink, and we do a swab here. I've done both sides, so I throw it away. And then I take the spatula, or the scalpel, and I put down a blob of ink. And this, when it dries, this will kind of represent, hopefully if there's any sheen involved, it'll show up. So I generally leave this dry for a good couple hours at best. Next, chromatography. So for chromatography, I actually have chromatography paper that I bought on Amazon. And again, I'm using my glass nib pen. It's just that I don't need to fill up a pen. And I do have some desk and dip pens that I could use, but I just find this to be more convenient. And I like to lay down a lot of ink at near the bottom of that chromatography strip. And then I immediately drop it into water. And as you can see, it starts to spread right away. We're going to leave it in there for a minute. When I was using filter paper from a coffee maker, I just put it in there for 10 or 15 seconds. But this requires a little bit more time in water to really push that ink up. I should have put that line a little bit higher so I didn't get any ink in the water, but I think it'll look good. I'm going to count to 60. We've reached a minute. Very intense color. Looks like it may have some water resistance there, as there's a dark line at the bottom. So I set this aside for, again, a couple hours to let that water really push up the ink, but it's not pushing up the ink much. This is a really super saturated ink from my initial look. I use a paper towel to clean off the glass nib. That also shows you some of the interesting features of the ink. Again, super saturated. Definitely looks like there's some green in it. A little bit of teal. Here's some sample writing on Tomoe River paper. And I'm hoping to catch that amazing sheen on Tesla coil, voltaic art, and ultramarine. Ultramarine has the least amount, but Tesla coil and voltaic art is just amazing. And I wrote that Birmingham Inks with Tesla coil. Yes, there's a lot of similarities in these colors, but they're colors that I like. And ultramarine is certainly a very intense blue. Tesla coil is similar intense blue. I see a little purple in there. Voltaic art is just kind of like a dark, but chloride is really a nice color in my view. So I think I figured out the light to show the sheen. It's amazing how that ink changes color from a nice blue to a shimmering reddish tint. So I'm glad I finally found the right combination of light and angle to show off that interesting sheen quality. And Tesla coil certainly has a lot of sheen for your visual entertainment. So now we're going to walk through the color cards for the 4 Birmingham inks that we're looking at today. And yes, Tesla coil has a phenomenal amount of red sheen to it. That shows up in this blob of ink I laid down there. It's not so much apparent, but it is somewhat visible in the writing and not in the swab. The chromatography shows a very, very intense blue. You know, I like it from that blue viewpoint, and I certainly do like the sheen, which is what attracted me to the ink to begin with. Voltaic art's just a little bit different type of blue, and it also has some nice sheen to it. Slightly less than Tesla coil, but still very nice. Adds a little dimension to it. And the chromatography shows quite a range and shows some permanence here at the bottom. We're going to be doing a water resistance test later on, so you'll get to see how each of these 4 inks perform after they've dried and you put water on your paper. So this is, I think, an interesting exploration. At least I'm enjoying it. Here's copper chloride, which I just like the color. It's a little bit different. There's not really any real sheen there. If we look at the chromatography, it doesn't show much except some bluish green. And it's definitely lighter, less saturated than Voltaic art or Tesla coil. And last but not least is ultramarine. Again, a little bit of red sheen there, which is nice. And this is really a dense dark blue, but the chromatography shows something very interesting. I mean, this top is what you would expect, but, you know, there's a little bit of pink going up there, which may be the sheen, and no water resistance. And we'll see if the chromatography is actually indicative of water resistance when we do the water test. You may ask, how do these inks perform on copy paper? Like 24-pound, just standard copy paper, inkjet paper, whatever. If we flip it around, we'll see there's definitely some bleed through and show through from these inks. So you're only going to be writing on one side. That would be my perspective. The reason why I did this is a piece of paper we're going to put into water to see how these inks respond and how much water resistance they have. You know, this is one of the things that, you know, you saw Tomoe River paper and how it looked on that. You saw the color cards. Copper chloride does come through quite nice as far as that color goes. Ultramarine also looks very, very dense. Tesla coil and Voltaic art just don't have that same nice little look, but they certainly do the job of putting a mark on paper. So we're ready for the water resistance test. This is just a tray of regular tap water. I'm going to take this copy paper that I put all 4 inks on, and we're going to just put it in water and see what happens. Now you can see right away that they're starting to spread. We'll zoom in a little bit. And that's what we would expect. But copper chloride's really sticking, which is, I saw a little bit of water resistance in the chromatography. Tesla coil comes off really, really quickly. Voltaic art and ultramarine seem to be kind of similar. So we're actually going to leave it set in the water for a while. Probably about 10-15 minutes, just to make certain that we get the full effect of water on this ink after it's dried for over a day. So we've seen a slight time exposure, and now this has been soaking for about 30 minutes, and voltaic art is still readable. Copper chloride is a lot gone. Tesla coil is almost completely gone, and so is ultramarine. So for water resistance, voltaic art now is the leader in that ink feature. Well, after about a half an hour in water, voltaic arc certainly left a lot there. Tesla coil is pretty well gone. Aquamarine is even more gone. Copper chloride left a little bit more than these two, but certainly voltaic arc has the best water resistance, and that shows up in the chromatography. There's that dark line at the bottom, which bonded to the paper and didn't move when I dipped this in water. So it's an interesting feature of that one ink out of these four. I've inked up 2 pens with individual Birmingham inks. Copper chloride's in here. Voltaic arc is in this pen. I use voltaic art because I have the biggest bottle. I like the intensity, and copper chloride because it's a little bit of a different ink. This is in the crisp line and this is in the rich line, and I think that's an appropriate description of the inks. This is the Fabriano paper that I use for all my ink reviews, so I thought we would take a look at how the ink looks on this paper in these 2 medium steel nibs. One of the more obvious things is the voltaic arc, the rich ink, is certainly a very, very wet ink. I mean, it just gushes out of this nib. And the nib just, it feels like you're skating on ice. I mean, it's just a completely smooth experience, much smoother than the copper chloride ink. I think these nibs are comparable. That's why I used them. And also I'm cheating a little bit because they'll be in an upcoming review as soon as I get my amber version of this new 316 design by Kaigaloo. So I just thought I'd give you this example. In my experiences of writing with voltaic art, you get some sheen, but it's not something you're going to get on every piece of paper, on all your writing. The way this ink goes down is certainly going to have potential for sheen. And this also doesn't sheen as much as Tesla coil does, but that's the ink that I put in the pen. And I have to say that both of these inks I'm extremely happy with. The flow, the color, this is definitely more saturated. The voltaic arc, which is a rich ink, so that's why it's called rich. And the copper chloride, I just love the color. It's a green, but it's just kind of has a little bit of nuances to it, which is very nice. So I love watching the ink guy. So we're going to also write on Tomoe River paper. I expect we might see some sheen from the ink. That's just super wet. I'm very impressed. I mean, this is no slouch either, but Voltaic arc is just a gusher. And like I said, copper chloride's not far behind. So that's how they look on Tomoe River paper. Yes, there is sheen in the Voltaic arc. Now that I figured out how to get the light to show off the sheen, and it's certainly something that Tomoe River paper is very good to bring out. So we're in the final phases of this ink review, done in Chris Wrap 52 style. And I have to admit that I enjoy these inks. I've enjoyed Birmingham Inks. This is I think my third kind of good size order from them. And they never fail to work well, flow well, great colors, great saturation, and now we have some interesting sheen. Here's what they look like on the Birmingham Pens website. And I think this is a good example of seeing how that's represented. You know, these are screenshots that I took. There's my computer display, and then translating them into a JPEG that goes into the video. But it's pretty good, and hopefully that'll give you an idea of what you see in these videos versus what shows up on a website. I need to give another shout out to Nick and Josh, his brothers that run Birmingham Pens. If you have any interest in the inks, they make some great handmade pens which come and go quickly on their website. But I just think it's great. A small family-owned business. It's been around for a while and has been really providing the pen community with some great pens, great inks, great nibs, a lot of things. And for me as a customer that has used them a number of times and will use them again in the future, I think it's just good. We've reached the end of this video. I hope it finds you safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, especially enjoying your inks, and just getting that amazing feeling of putting ink on paper, notes, journals, writing a letter to a pen pal. I've written a few in the past couple days to some new pen pals or future pen pals. And one of the things about writing letters is it's not whether you get a response or not, it's the fact that you write the letter. And I find it to be a very great experience, and I learn a lot about myself, and it's just really makes you think about a lot of things when you're putting words on a paper that you're sending to somebody to read. So enjoy it. We're going to say the end, and we're going to say bye until the next video. You got a little bit of a view of one pen that will be in an upcoming video. Again, stay safe and healthy. Bye.